and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing
lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit press, sideways, what a save!
Looks to the outside as Trunkgate goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
He's trying this contact though.
slide left of the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cut back here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
It will come up with every tracker, every corner has some sort of camber on it. It's quite challenging, deceivingly challenging in through some of these corners, especially on the boot out, especially turn 7, the toe, as you're going up the hill and struggling to get the power down off the top as well.
The toe is incredibly important and an incredibly important part of this circuit, which you need to get right. If you cannot get that part of the circuit correct, you are going to lose a lot of time. The same for the run into the heel as well. The corner which follows that one, you've got a right-hander which is slightly off camber and downhill as well. So you're going to have the momentum of the car trying to pull you down the hill and then back up the hill towards turn 9, the left-hander to rejoin.
We apologize for the little audio glitches that we had just had there. We'll get ourselves back going here. Qualifying is actually underway for this one. We've got Frederick Rasmussen getting himself on provisional pole position for the moment at 149.6 is the benchmark, excuse me, that he is going to set for this qualifying session. Jeremy Bootloop getting himself up onto the front row as it stands, but we still got a whole bunch of qualifying laps waiting to get themselves posted up onto the board. Diane Shanguven, he's heading his way out of the final corner right now, and he'll get himself towards that line. What sort of lap time is he going to set? It's a 150.1, which is not good enough even to break inside of that top 10. So the driver that drives these things in real life, that's a very, very slow first hot lap there, Jack.
Yeah, and it's just going to show that maybe he needs to get a little bit more out of the car in the second lap. We have got a high track temperature here today, so some of the drivers might be struggling, might have had a cooler temperature yesterday, which the setup is more suited for, and today they're just trying to find the grip levels out here on the circuit. It can be quite hard here as well, because we do have changes of track texture and sort of concrete and tarmac mixing into one in some of these corners, which just makes those grip levels even worse.
Yep, it really, really does. And as you can see on that left-hand side of your screen, still Frederick Rasmussen, the man to beat, with Jeremy Bootloop 1.5 tenths of a second behind. Very close between Bootloop and Kramel Fanjak, in fact, for P number 2 and P number 3, and still all stacked up coming down the field as well. Alejandro Sanchez, you can see him setting himself a decent lap, breaking inside of that top 10. Still only 3 tenths of a second behind your race leader. David Williams will improve position as well, up into P number 12 as we get the rest of those laps logged up onto the board, Jack. And now this qualifying is perhaps what we really expected, except for the fact that Maximilian Bonnecke only P number 4, and he's been struggling this week as well. In the other strength of field race that we have here on the Fridays, he only managed to gain 5th position, and I think that was because of an instant they had earlier on in the race, looking at the amount of instant points that he collected over the course of the race. But it doesn't seem like Bonnecke is at all comfortable with this racetrack.
Yeah, something quite isn't clicking with Maximilian Bonnecke this week, and it's weird to see because he's usually the driver who we see up at the front of the field setting the pace. And this week, that driver is Freddie Rasmussen. Rasmussen is looking strong up at the front with about 0.13 seconds over Jeremy Bootloop in second. And then from there, you've got drivers covered as we get a new pole time. Sebastian Job going to put himself onto the pole position in the closing stages of qualifying, just pipping Freddie Rasmussen to the top spot.
Yeah, exactly, and that's going to be 0.165 faster than his G2 Esports teammate there. So an all front row lockout right now for G2 Esports as the session quickly draws itself to a close. There's no one out there on the racetrack as we will remove that qualifying graphic up on screen for you right now. So that is also unexpected. Sebastian Job getting himself pole position the first time in a broadcasted race here on the Saturday afternoon, Jack.
Yeah, an awesome job by Sebastian Job, and he's managed to get a really good position here at Watkins Glen, getting that pole position, although it might not mean that you're going to be there at the end of the race. You're in a strong position going into the first lap. You can ideally avoid some of the carnage that could happen further behind, up through the S's or into the carousel on the bus stop, because that is going to be a massive pinch point for the drivers.
Yeah, we'll get ourselves to the grid right about now. As we've already mentioned, Sebastian Job pole position with his G2 Esports teammate of Freddy Rasmussen lining up right beside him. Then we've got Commander Sim Sports in P number 3 with Jeremy Bootloop, and P number 4 you've got Camel Franchak sitting there as well. And then you have to cycle things back to look at P number 5, Maximilian Benecke, and he's a lot more work to do to get himself inside of that top 3 with Patrick Holtzman lining up in P number 6. Lauren Henreich, though, he'll get himself P number 7 for the time being, with Ricardo Castroledo P8, with David Nowakowski and Alexander Voss rounding out your top 10 as we get those cycled through up on your screen for you right now. Jared Filsell will start in P number 11 with Alejandro Sanchez in 12th. Enzo Benito, though, the EROC winner, and of course beating out Lucas de Grassi in the Real Racer Champions, he'll have to start for P number 13 in this one, with David Williams P14. He's right on the bubble of getting inside of the qualifying position, so he has to have a fantastic race, with Niels Koch, Graham Carroll, Sebastian Dunkel, Ayant Shanguven, Gianni Vecchio also on the bubble, starts P number 19, with Jake Hewlett starting in the 20th grid spot. As the cars get themselves up onto the grids then, and well, what can we expect from this race? If it has been the same for the past couple of rounds, then we can expect quite a bit of action here on this first lap. All the drivers are on the grid then. What does round number 4 hold for the Porsche Pro Series? They'll get themselves started. They'll get themselves going. A very short run down to the first turn here, and immediately Sebastian Job covers off his teammate around the outside. Jeremy Bootloop slots himself up into P number 3 there as Rasmussen, he looks to move on his teammate up towards the S's, but is it going to be unsuccessful coming through here? Single file very quickly throughout almost your entire field here as they'll snake their way up. Sanchez and what is going to be the car of Jared Filsell, they'll go side by side, coming up through towards the back straight for the first time, and then down into one of your main overtaking opportunities. Battling for the race lead, though, Sebastian Job and Freddy Rasmussen. They almost make contact in the middle of the corner. Don't ruin it now between the two teammates in a race as big as this. And you've also got Jeremy Bootloop there, ready and waiting if these guys get themselves into an altercation. But everything is clean. Everything is very squeaky clean, at least in this first sector of the first lap, Jack.
Yeah, no first lap incidents like we have seen at some of the previous rounds in this series, so everyone being nice and sensible on the opening lap here at Watkins Glen. Did see slight bit of contact between Freddy Rasmussen and Sebastian Job on my screens, but they do look as though they are nice and safe behind. Riding on board with the driver of Lauren Heinrich for Williams Esports. He's chasing down the driver of Maximilian Benecke. Benecke gets loose on the brakes. Heinrich looks to the outside, getting very close to the rear bumper as they head down the hill, back up the hill towards turn number 9. And Max Benecke, I think, is just safe on that inside line there, Connery.
Yeah, Heinrich has to find another way around, and he's not able to find it through turn 9 that time, and turn number 10 isn't really the best overtaking opportunity either, so these guys snake themselves through towards the end of the lap. Then we're riding on board with the Williams Esports driver of Alexander Voss as he has a whole bunch of purple and white in front of him. That is the Coanda car of Ricardo Castroledo, who hasn't really had the best of luck in broadcasted races. Finally got a break coming through towards the last round number 3 at Motegi, but he has to string those together if he's going to secure himself comfortably inside of that top 20. We're riding on the back of Sebastian Job here as he runs himself up the hill. Oh no, Sebastian Job, he's pinned it at the top of the S's just as we were on board with him. He'll have to take the tow back to pit lane, and that is a chunk of points lost for the British driver.
Riding on board with that Brit as he came up the S's, just a little bit too much sliding through the first part, and he hit the wall on the bridge very hard, spat the car around, and he got stuck into a position where he cannot do anything. Aerial view, you can see just how much of a big hit it was. Very easy to do through that section of corners. That takes Sebastian Job straight out of the lead of this race.
Exactly, almost immediately taking the tow back to pit lane as he had to sit on the exit of the corner waiting for traffic to go through, and now Sebastian Job's not going to take any further part in this race, and that could well be a blow for him staying inside the top 20. He is sitting around about that P number 10 right now, so he should be fine, and also it depends on how he does in the other strength of field races this week as well. But that is simply not a chance that you should be throwing away like that, Jack. Arguably, when you're in one of these big races of the week, you only get a few of them, and if you make that kind of mistake in every single one of them, then you're in big trouble.
You are indeed, and that kind of mistake is very easy to make in these weather conditions with a hot track temperature. Of course, these Porsche Cup cars don't quite have the grip of a GT3 or GTE machine, which can very easily run flat through there in the hot conditions. You might have to slightly lift out of the throttle, and I have a feeling that Sebastian just didn't quite realise that on these opening laps. The tyres aren't up to temperature, up to pressure yet, not at their optimal running conditions. And I think he just over-pushed the car too early. He's been riding on board with Lauren Heinrich. You can see how much he's having to work the wheel. And you can see actually the car sliding through the S's really does show how much work these drivers are having to put in to keep these cars on the track.
It isn't the best conditions out there in terms of the track temperature. 46 degrees Celsius on the track temperature, in fact. So there's these drivers perhaps going to be searching a little bit for the grip there, and you're completely right as well, Jack. And a couple of recent changes here in these Porsches is that the tyres do have to take a while to get themselves back up to temperature, but Castrolado now, he's got himself into a couple of issues. We'll get the replay up on screen for you now. He was battling side by side of the car. I couldn't quite spot there. It was Patrick Holtzman, in fact, and he just gets spat towards the outside. Contact coming in the braking zone, and Holtzman, he left just a car's width of space on that outside there. So and there's contact resulting in it, and Castrolado has to completely abort the bus stop for all intents and purposes. Hits the barrier on the hits the Armco as well. So Castrolado, he's filed all the way back through the field right now. He's sitting behind Jake Hewlett, who's going to be promoted up into P17 when all is said and done. So Castrolado, again, bad luck and bad incident in a broadcasted race.
And riding on board now with Maximilian Benecke, set in fourth. The German will want to try and get himself further up the field, gets a good point score. He's second in the standings overall currently, behind the driver Freddie Rasmussen up at the front of the field. So he's safe in that top 20, Connery. The top 20, which we are very, very, very well repeating ourselves about. But for Maximilian Benecke, I think he just wants to try and get as many points as possible, because he did miss last week, if I remember correctly, so he is a little bit on the back burner when it comes to his competition with Freddie Rasmussen.
He is on board with Camel Franchak right now in the final podium spot. I'm always surprised about how close these guys get towards that right-hand wall, and it was that right-hand wall coming over the top of the S's that spelled doom for Sebastian Job's race just a little bit earlier on, but everyone else has managed to avoid that wall so far. Coming up into the carousel now, such a interesting corner to get yourself into, because you're basically hugging that yellow line all the way around until the exit. You don't take really a wide line through there at all before you get yourself onto the entry to the boot, then turn number 6 called the chute, as these guys will all stack up there for P number 3. Camel Franchak really feeling the heat right now from Benecke and Heinrich.
Yeah, and I think for the driver of Franchak, as we're riding on board with Lauren Heinrich, you can see just further ahead he has got a little bit of rear wing damage. Won't really be affecting him too much, I don't think. He's quite comfortable in the position. Benecke looking to the inside, which means that Lauren Heinrich has got an outside move possible as long as Benecke doesn't shut the door or Heinrich doesn't back out of it. Everyone's running line and stern up in this front top 5 at the moment, Connery. I think that's very clever of them. It's half an hour. It's not a long race in comparison to some races which you see on the iRacing Esports Network. Of course, last week having the Daytona 24 hours. That one is a lot longer, but it's still a long way to go, especially in these hot conditions. You do need to be careful heading themselves through the final corner out onto the front straight to start lap number 5.
And you can see on the rear spoiler of Camel Franchak, it's got a little bit of damage to the right-hand side of it if you're looking at the car from the rear, the left-hand side if you're looking at it from the front. That's going to affect him a little bit coming down these straights here. It's going to give a slight advantage to Beneke and Heinrich behind when it comes to those heavy braking zones, but he's doing well with it right now, still holding station in P3 as we ride on board with the P number 10 driver of Alejandro Sanchez, who has a good gaggle of cars ahead of him to perhaps challenge. Got the likes of Phil Sell, now Kowski, Alexander Voss involved in this particular battle as well as they run down towards the bus stop. And Phil Sell, he's not had the best of races either. He's currently running in P number 9, which is, I guess, would be solid in terms of a points finish, but it's not the top 5s and podium positions that we've seen from him so far this season, Jack.
And of course, the second place finish at the first round at Belle Isle in Detroit. He has had some good runs recently. This is probably the worst run we've seen Jared Filsell have in this series so far. Still within the top 10, still some good point scoring that's going to be happening today as long as he can keep this position. Riding on board with Niels Koch for Williams Esports. He is tailing the Italian driver of Enzo Benito, recently back from Mexico, as Connery mentioned earlier on in the broadcast. And at the moment, Niels is looking quite safe in 12th there. It doesn't really look as though he wants to make a move, and Benito covering every opportunity possible.
Battling side by side, Beneke versus Heinrich then. So Pure Racing Team versus Williams Esports, and the Williams Esports car will have to try to struggle on its outside, but Heinrich is able to stuff it in there still. Coming to turn 10, and he'll look for the cutback move off the corner, outside the line for the final turn. It's not ideal, and he tags the rear bumper of Beneke, and he gets sent into the tyre barriers as well. Catastrophic moment for Beneke as we'll get the replay up.
That was not what Maximilian Beneke wanted. You can see coming through the second to last corner, Lauren Heinrich is looking to the outside. Beneke covers it, but is just a little bit too late. The slightest bit of contact spun the German around, and the next thing he knows, he's got a Williams Esports car into the passenger door, and he's being pushed into the tyre wall. Another look again from the aerial camera, Connery. In fact, on board, you can see just how close these drivers do get.
Yeah, Heinrich really harassing the back bumper, and maybe a little bit too much into the final corner. Spins Beneke around up onto 2 tires as well before he hits the tire barrier on the outside. So that is the second big name in this race to go out. We had Sebastian Job a little bit earlier on, and now we have Maximilian Beneke. Here comes Lauren Heinrich though down the inside of his teammate of Alexander Voss. So the 2 Williams Esports teammates will go side by side through the chute on the run up on towards the toe. Then Alexander Voss still on that inside, Heinrich on the outside, and Voss, he's racing door to door, trading pink with his teammate here. And now Phil Sell, he smells blood in the water behind as well. He'll get blocked coming down the straight towards turn 8. Voss on the inside, now Phil Sell on the outside as there's battling behind as well. Alessandro Sanchez versus now Kowski right in the back of your shot, as these battles will continue up to turn 9 and turn 10 as well before they go single file once again. Sanchez still getting himself past now Kowski, and Alexander Voss managing to defend from Phil Sell.
And it was very close to contact between Alexander Voss and Jared Filsell, just about avoiding that one. Although looking at this battle between Alejandro Sanchez and the driver of David Nowoski in the number 19 Triton Racing Machine, heading themselves across the line. Turn number 1 is a good overtaking opportunity. Nowoski looks to the inside, but it just looks as though he wasn't close enough or prepared to make the lunge. Of course, lots of runoff on the exit of turn 1. So if you do make a move, you do have a chance to try and avoid a bit of a dive bomb. Riding on board with Jared Filsell up the S's, and you can see just how sideways the car of Alexander Voss is getting.
Yeah, Alexander Voss even through the block, coming to the start of the S's as well, as they all weave themselves down the back straight into the bus stop. This time Phil Sell, he thinks it's go time right now. He's already gained a position since we last talked about him, looking for more, looking to break inside of that top 6. Tighter line being taken through the carousel, trying to find every single even hundredth of a second he can, as they'll tease each other once again on the brakes into 6. Sanchez and Nowakowski, they are still very close behind this one, but Filsell, he gets the run off the corner. He'll look to challenge up to turn 7 now, around the outside, which is very, very possible. We're actually going to get a replay up on screen of Patrick Holtzman, because I think he has lost the position here, I believe, to Lauren Heinrich. He did. It was coming up towards that same section as Filsell and Alexandra Voss, so that is how that particular move was done. Meanwhile, Filsell and Voss, they'll stay in the status quo once we return to the live pictures here.
Yeah, very close again. Filsell really putting the pressure on, and it's closed all of these drivers up together. One thing you didn't see on your screens was there was a slight lunge from Alejandro Sanchez into the chute on this lap, but Filsell shut the door, and Sanchez almost got sideways trying to avoid the car ahead of him as they all head themselves out of the final corner. Lovely out of that final corner, Connery, to drive through, because it's on camber. You've got a lot of runoff to the side, but if you use this a little bit too much, you're in the wall. But there's a lot of places to go. If you can get a good run, you're setting yourself up for a really nice pass in turn number 1.
It's definitely one of the places where you can make things work down in turn 1, but as these guys help themselves up the S's for the 8th time in this particular event, it's also about the run you get off of the top of the SS section as well, because this can set you up for a bus stop pass. There's the flashing of lights there from Jared Filsell, and well, we're not used to seeing that in this particular series. We're used to seeing it in the multi-class endurance series, but you know what the universal language of racing drivers is. You know, flash of the lights means make every way, well, get out of the way, basically, Jack.
It's universal sign language for I'm getting stuck behind you, get out of my way, I'm coming through. And since Jared Filsell has been flashing his lights at Alexander Voss, well, it just looks as though Voss has inched about a 10th on him. So at the moment, Jared Filsell can't even get side by side to try and challenge for a pass, let alone get past.
Yeah, Heinrich looking to break away at the front, so Voss looking to try to defend still from Filsell, as all of the body language of Filsell's car right now is just screaming, I want to get past. I'm looking for every single opportunity that I can to try and slot myself in. If you leave a door ajar, I am going to prise it open. So that is the problem that Voss is dealing with in his wing mirrors right now, and he can't really focus on his battle with Patrick Holtzman because of Filsell's constant pressure onto his rear bumper jet.
Yeah, and I think for Filsell, that's going to be very important, as he almost loses it out the final corner. And doing this is going to either upset himself or the cars ahead of him. Looking at the 11th position, this is battle for the last place in top 10. Still between Enzo Benito and Niels Koch. The driver behind is Graham Carroll in the number 13, so he could also come an interesting factor into this one, Connery, as they all head themselves up the S's, riding on board with Carroll.
Yeah, Niels Koch really needs to hold on to this position from Carroll, because Niels, he's one of those drivers that is just on the outside of the top 20s. In fact, in P21, and you know, the top 20 drivers in this series get themselves qualified for the iRacing Porsche World Championship. So this is a situation where if you're Niels Koch, every single point matters, no matter if it's, you know, even for these mid-pack positions, it's still 10 or 20 points here or there that can decide whether you're racing for your share of $100,000 or not.
It's going to be very close come the end of this 9-week season. I think it's going to be interesting to find who is on the very final positions, and especially probably the people in 21st down to 25th, because the likelihood is there will be some drivers who will not take the invitation into the series, Connery. I think you will find that I reckon at least 5 people won't take the invitation, so that will promote the next 5 people from this series.
Yeah, but you simply can't rely on people not taking invitations, especially when things are that close at the bottom end of the top 20. Riding on board with Ayanchan Guven then, further back through the field. He had a couple of issues earlier on, but he's managed to edge his way back up. Started P number 18 up into P number 14. So still a good day here at the Glen for Guven, but I think as a you know, a real-life racing driver, he'll definitely be looking for more in this sort of situation, and he definitely has a full array of meals on the menu, considering all of the cars ahead of him. But look at the gap to the race lead now. Fredrik Rasmussen has just run for the hills, 1.1 seconds over Jeremy Bootloop, and in a race as short as this, that seems like a country mile.
And that leaves Jeremy Bootloop with one other driver behind. The top three have managed to run away with this one, Connery, because everyone's fighting so hard in the mid-pack. Looking at Jeremy Bootloop, and you can just see behind is Kamil Franchak. He's still there, but Kamil Franchak has got 5 seconds back to Lauren Heinrich, and Heinrich is leading what can be classed as a snake of almost 15 Porsches, and I can't think of a better snake.
Yeah, this is from P5 all the way down to basically the rear end of your running field. That's P number 17, Sebastian Dunkel. Everyone is in this train apart from your leading few, and that just shows how close and how competitive this series is. Phil Sell and Voss, they looked to get close coming up through the toe that time, but still an unsuccessful attempt from Phil Sell, and now you have to feel he's going to start feeling a little bit frustrated behind the wheel of his Porsche 911 Cup car. He'll look for the move then in the heel, and he sensed the move, he can taste it, but he simply wasn't able to gobble it all down. And now Alejandro Sanchez is looking for the move on him as well. He's just sitting back in a sort of mindset where if these guys are going to have an incident, or if they make a mistake, then I can slip myself through.
I am surprised we did not see contact between Jared Filsalan and Alexander Voss into the heel. It was very close, and I must admit, I was thinking we were about to lose two big runners. Voss goes straight to the inside, back into the racing line, almost as if he's trying to break the draft or try and get a dummy out of Jared Filsell. But Filsell not close enough through turn number one. Voss makes a mistake. He runs wide. He's going to lose a position to Filsell, and he's also going to lose a position to Alejandro Sanchez.
Yeah, he is. That's a crucial mistake from Voss through turn one. It is a pretty tricky corner on this track. Let's see how he's able to manage it. Coming down into here, it's just the car just breaks away on entry as he tries to get himself into the corner, and turn one is slightly on cambered here, so that could factor in with the camber change, but it just seems like he had no grip at all on the entry and ends up losing those two positions to both Phil Sell and Sanchez. So Voss now, he's in a little bit of a sticky situation, still scoring good points inside of that top 10, but not as good as it once was, as the battling further back starts to heat up now, because you've got the likes of David Williams involved with Beneke, with Hewitt, and with Dunkel as well. And there was even a little bit of contact there coming through the carousel, because that was Ayanshan Guven has been disqualified. Guven has got 17 incidents.
And that's the second time that's happened this week for Ayanshan Guven. So Guven clearly struggling with Watkins Glen. He's not having a good week. We can see some door-to-door action with him and David Williams that time. And all of a sudden, he's disappeared off of our screens. And he's out of this event. So everyone behind him gets a free position.
We'll get a replay of that up on your screen. Guven down the inside, contact with the car on the outside, then bam, he's out. Instantly disqualified by the iRacing system for going over 17 instant points. And as you quite rightfully mentioned, Jack, he did it in the last strength of field race as well. So this race has been absolutely diabolical for Ayanshan Guven, and how he's going to recover from this one, we are still yet to see. But as we now have 10 minutes left in this event, you can just see how stacked up this mid-pack still is here, heading the way up the S's. This time it's Phil Sell leading the train after Alexander Voss's mistake, and now it's Sanchez, Voss, and Nowakowski with Enzo Benito and Koch featuring to try and try and settle their differences inside this top 10.
And we're into the final third of this event, so each and every one of these drivers are going to start to ramp up the heat a little bit more, start to try and chase down the guys ahead and get those few important positions that could mean that they get into this top 20, because of course 1 point here and there is a lot when it comes to the end of this series, especially with how competitive we have seen it being. For Ayanshan Guven, this is a good example. He's currently on about 1,100 points. The person who is in P20 is on 950 as Voss looks to the inside into the toe, wasn't able to get a move. We were then riding on board with Niels Koch, and Koch was also looking for a move on Enzo Benito, and that didn't happen. but it looks as though Voss looking to the outside of Sanchez as they head themselves into the heel. He's going to go to the outside. Sanchez is going to get boxed in, but he's going to get a better run off the corner. So Alexander Voss wasn't able to make it work there.
He's still looking for it up to turn 9, and he might even get it off the exit because Sanchez has to push wide. He'll take the battle to turn 10 and almost crowd Sanchez off the circuit. They're only leaving one car's width of space on the exit, but there's no space on the exit of the corner. Voss has had a massive incident as cars, after all, scatter behind because the Williams esports driver was stranded in the middle of the racetrack. Replay up.
Replay is up on your screen. We're having the reports of Maximilian Benecke being disqualified. You can see there was nowhere to go for the cars behind. Riding on board with Benecke, he had a slight bit of contact into the wall. He went and bang, out of the race. He is joining Anjan Guven on the naughty step here at Watkins Glen today.
Oh, this has been the race of disqualifications as you see the battle. They're going in through turn 9, a bit of dooring off the exit of the corner, and then bam, big contact for the 2 cars behind as they have to get themselves scattered across the racetrack. And Maximilian Benecke, an unfortunate victim of that one, just getting over the instant limit with another 4x as a result of that incident, and he'll be cycled all the way back to the back of the field just ahead of Anjan Guven, who also got himself a disqualification a little bit earlier on. So now this is going to be very, very interesting because we have, what, 6.5 minutes left in this race. If instant limits are this big of a problem around here, some drivers might be a little bit frightened with how close they are to the limit. We can't see that here on Racesport TV, but the drivers will know. They will see their number and they might just be a little bit worried.
I know for a fact that we have some quite a lot of door-to-door action today, so you never know. People might be picking up the odd instant point here and there with the little bit of contact they might be getting through a corner, and that's the bit which will hurt them. That's what's going to hurt them. That's probably what we saw from Max Benecke, because Max Benecke is always known as a very clean driver, although he hasn't had good luck here today. Anjan Guven, well, he's got 2 disqualifications this week, so that could purely be off tracks, and they're very easy to pick up here at Watkins Glen. We will never know, though, what caused them. Still looking at this battle between Alejandro Sanchez and David Nowoski. As it stands at the moment, Sanchez has got a good advantage as they head down into turn 1, Connery. Nowoski, he's not close enough to challenge, and with 4 laps left, he's going to have to make a move pretty quickly.
Nowoski, what's he able to do in these late stages? We got a battle further behind, though, between Williams and Carroll, and Williams, again, one of those drivers that is on the bubble, and he has, trying to defend positions for his life here, as he'll have to start looking behind as well because he has his teammate of Jake Hewlett further back and maybe looking for moving to the bus stop, but has to cancel out of it last minute as they'll hop over the curbs up through there. And Williams, he has to try and get this pass back now on Carroll if he is to, just even just to save his championship at this point, because he's one of the drivers that can really wheel these GT cars around any racetrack you decide to put him on here. A good performance as well at the Porsche Sim Racing Summit, but in this Pro Series, it hasn't really gone to plan for the British driver, and now he's at risk of not even getting into the World Championship.
And that's a risk that he doesn't want to lose. If you do not make it in, you've just got to wait again 12 months. Wait to have another opportunity, and you never know, next year could be even more competitive getting into the series, Connery, and that's going to be the interesting bit, is who's going to qualify at the end of the World Championship at the end of 2019 for the 2020 edition, as David Williams getting very sideways as he heads himself through turn 9. That allows Jake Hewlett onto the back of the number 20 machine, and it also allows Graham Carroll a little bit of breathing space coming on to this final section of the course.
It does. It's not going to be close enough, though, through the final turn, as the drivers have been tending to clip the grass there on exit. There is a healthy amount of curb you can use through the final corner on the exit to make sure you get the maximum speed possible coming down the straight, but that does turn into grass fairly quickly, and can make the car a little unstable. There's also the camber issue coming through that corner as well. As it levels out, coming onto the pit straight, your car can get very, very loose indeed, as Williams, he narrowly avoids the same barrier that Sebastian Job hit, but this time he gets himself the momentum and the overspeed over Graham Carroll. Battle on the brakes then into the bus stop, and Williams, he's not able to get his way through and has to back out, and it was just the slightest bit of contact between himself and Carroll. They'll continue though through the carousel as Williams brings his nose ever closer to that back bumper.
And that was very close to disaster. Williams getting a little bit deep into the chute. I thought Jake Hewlett was going to have a look for a moment, but he did not. Looking at Niels Koch and Enzo Benito, this battle is still going on, ladies and gentlemen. I feel like it's been going on for almost 90% of this race so far. And Benito still is holding off Koch. Koch cannot find a way past. Whatever he tries, looking to the inside as they head down into the hill, but nothing is going to avail. Enzo Benito still holding on to this position.
Yep, exactly. Has to search for an outside line as we look at the battle ahead of this one. Koch versus Benito. Oh, Benito almost gets shoved out onto the grass there. There's a little bit of contact in the middle of the corner, but Niels Koch will come out on top in that particular battle. That is very important in terms of his championship, but Carroll and Hewlett, they'll be battling further back. David Williams has got himself through on his fellow Brit, and now Carroll risks dropping even further back.
And Graham Carroll is going to have to do a really good job to hold off from Jake Hewlett. Just 2 laps remaining in this one now. Not many battles left out onto the circuit. Here comes the driver of Jake Hewlett. Carroll getting a bad run. Very close to disaster on the grass. Hewlett's got the inside up the S's. Are they going to keep it side by side? They are indeed. Graham Carroll, has he got the slightly better run? I'm not sure. He must have had to lift out of the throttle to make sure that there wasn't contact. Hewlett's got the overspeed. Here comes Sebastian Dunkel from absolutely nowhere, but he's going to just back out of that one. Carroll looking to the inside as they head into the bus stop. No move going to happen, so Jake Hewlett now has got himself past and up into P number 12.
Yeah, and it's one of those cases where if you're Carroll, you lose one position, you get frustrated, you get annoyed that you lost the position, and then before you know it, you've lost another one, this time to Jake Hewlett, and it's really a task for some drivers to get that heart rate down and just get calmed down so that they can go and chase the race from whatever position they're in. Sometimes some drivers get themselves a little bit too worked up over what has happened to them throughout the race, and that affects their performance. I'm not saying this is exactly what's happening to Graham Carroll, but it's a possibility.
And I have a feeling for Graham Carroll, it's not over just yet. He's looking to the inside as they head themselves down into the hill. He's going to go for a move. Hewlett's got no option but to stick to the middle of the track. Still going to be side by side on the exit as they head back up the hill. Hewlett now in a much better position. Both of them getting very squirrely on the brakes, as you often do in this Porsche Cup car. Still holding on to it is Hewlett, but Carroll still side by side. They head themselves into turn number 10. The last minute brakes for Graham Carroll. A little bit of contact between the two, I think. Hewlett still holding on to this position. Carroll must be at his wit's end now, Connery. There can't be much left for him to do until he's either getting past or just lose out completely.
It is P13, P12 are the positions they're battling over right now. A little jink to the inside for Carroll, but that move definitely wasn't on as these guys take wider and wider and wider lines through the exit of turn 1, which you are allowed to do. There's no track limit situation that you have to abide by coming off of that corner as Carroll plays with fire in terms of the right-hand side Armco. Early defensive line. You just see Jake Hewlett immediately going inside and then back towards the normal racing line for the bus stop. That's how scared of Carroll he is right now. He knows that theoretically in clear air, Carroll would be the faster driver. He was the faster qualifier, getting P16 over Jake Hewitt's P20. It's now a case of Hewitt's defensive work and if Carroll can just hold his nerve.
And I think for Graham Carroll, that is going to be the deciding factor in this one, is if he can get his way past them. We are currently looking at your race leader. It's been a very quiet race for him, Freddie Rasmussen. Just 3 corners remaining, and he will pick up another win on his road to the Porsche World Championships.
Yeah, it's been absolutely flawless races for Freddie Rasmussen. Only a couple of corners to go now for the G2 Esports driver, and he will pick up yet another win in a broadcasted race here for the iRacing Porsche Pro Qualifying Series. Freddie Rasmussen, he does it time and time again. Run up to the start-finish line. He'll claim another win here in this series with Jeremy Bootloop finishing a very respectable second place. Camel Franchak get himself another podium as well. Lauren Heinrich will finish P number 4 as the rest of your runners will head their way across the line. No changes further down to speak of, but wow, that was a particularly confusing race in stages, Jack, because we had all of those disqualifications, we had all of those big incidents as well involving very big names, and then we ended up with a result that we perhaps expected to see at the front, at least, with Freddie Rasmussen, Bootloop, and Franchak up there. But then you look further to the back of the field, and you've got Job, Vecchio, Guven, Beneke, Voss, all in the final couple positions. That's insane.
It just shows that one slip-up can cost you the whole race for Sebastian Job. It was that first lap that did it for him, and after that he went nowhere. For Gianni Vecchio, we didn't cover it, but he went out on the second lap. Aichin Guven just was a little bit too adventurous with the incident limit, and Maximilian Beneke, 2 unfortunate incidents that he was caught up in today. Not the result that he would have wanted, but he's in second position in the standings, so he is more comfortable than some of the other drivers who have been knocked out, like Aichin Guven and Gianni Vecchio.
Here's, we'll go over your official race results. Freddie Rasmussen wins by 1.2 seconds over Jeremy Bootloop, with Camel Franchak rounding out your podium 3 seconds behind your race leader. Lauren Henrich for Williams Esports will finish P4 with Patrick Holtzman P number 5. Jared Filsell will finish in 6th with Alejandro Sanchez 7th, David Nowakowski in 8th, Niels Koch and Enzo Benito will end up inside the top 10. Then we look at your bottom end of the field, the second half, and that's going to be a case of David Williams finishing in 11th with Jake Hewitt having a very good late race, climbing up to P12 after finishing right at the back of the field. Graham Carroll, the big loser in that second half of the race there in P13. Sebastian Dunkel will get P14 when all is said and done, and Ricardo Castroledo, another disappointing performance in a strength of field race. He ends up in P15. And then you have your non-finishers, Alexandra Voss, 5 laps down, P16. Maximilian Beneke, Aichin Guven, Sebastian Job, and Gianni Vecchio. Incredible amount of average iRating in those bottom couple of spots, but we'll talk more about that in the post-race show here on RaceSpot TV, streaming on the iRacing Esports Network. Don't go away.
To the front bumper, and he hits him again now. Ray Alfala into the outside wall.
He's gonna pass nearly 3 cars down that front straightaway, and he's gonna get them all done with. What amazing
Race lead to the inside goes Logan Cloudman is gonna touch in. Pit press sideways. What a save!
Look to the outside as Cronkite goes off. De Jong into second place.
Going for the switchback. Oh, pinpoint driving.
It's howling down to the inside.
Trying this contact though.
slide left of the racetrack. Chris Renner drives it back down underneath, and he takes that second spot right back. Joker goes to Garrett Lowe.
Garrett Lowe should take victory with all that contact.
He's going to try and make the move around the outside the parabolica. That's not going to work, but he's going to try and get the cutback here. Get the run out the parabolica. That's beautifully done there. Michael Schumacher, there's a little bit of door banging as well.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It was a victory here today for Frederik Rasmussen over Jeremy Bootsloop. But the big story of today, of course, well, it's two. Number one, Sebastian Job crashing out of pole position early on in this event. And the other one, Max Maneke finishing P number 16 as a consequence of him being involved in a couple of issues. Will Vincent here along with Connery Maddock and Jack Stiles to wrap things up. Connery, well, let's start with Sebastian Job. It's not the first time we've seen him do this, but this one, arguably one of the moments he'd like to forget, shall we say.
Yeah. I don't know what it is with Sebastian Job sometimes, because he gets himself into these situations so often. You have to remember back to the iRacing World Championship Grand Prix Series qualifying last year, where he completely binned it coming up through Eau Rouge and up towards Radion in the Formula 1 cars under completely no pressure as well. Same thing happened, or similar thing happened at the what was the Sim Racing Expo for the Porsche Sim Racing Trophy, and he didn't have the best of events either at the Porsche Sim Racing Summit. So I'm not sure what the situation is right now with Sebastian Job. He's just making these unforced errors in relatively big races, and it's really costing him right now, at least on the iRacing side of things.
Yeah, strength of field here today was 7,688. Max Benecke only lost 116 iRating, so we expected him to lose quite a bit more, but only 116 iRating lost for him here today, and we'll keep you up to date with how things are in terms of the points in this series as well in just one moment's time, because of course we have the Friday night race, which generally has very similar, if not a little bit higher strength of field than the Saturday afternoon event, and that does give the drivers opportunities to take part in two different events. The race today even 7,695 strength of field. Yesterday it was 7,364. So Jack, actually, for the first time this season, Saturday's had a higher SOF than Friday night.
Yeah, and a couple of names which are absent today, which we've seen earlier on in the season on this Saturday broadcasted race, not going to be here today, so they're missing out on some of the points. I'm just looking at some of the points which some of these drivers have picked up. Freddie Rasmussen has picked up 383, so that is going to put him ahead of Maximilian Benecke in the standings. So Freddie Rasmussen is now your new overall leader in the points, I believe.
Yeah, indeed. So that, however, is all we've got time for today. Don't forget, we've got more racing coming your way on Racesport TV. We wrap things up as ever. Monday Night Skippies here on Racesport TV. And if you would like more racing action, don't forget, you can subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network. Just do so if you're on YouTube watching us now. Hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to sign up for notifications as well. Join us and many other iRacing broadcasters with the very best iRacing action. As we say, that is all we have got time for here today. However, we do want to give a shout out to the people who get things done for us. They are Islam Balal, TrackCams22.com, as well as Andres Warner and One Design, Simon Grossman at Engineering.com, and Nick Thisson for Racesport TV, live timing and scoring. Commentary team here today, Connery Maddock, Jack Stiles. I am Will Vincent. Goodbye from Watkins Glen International.